Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
The daughter decided to tell the whole truth about the ex-wife, but what did the husband do next? Today's story with a similar plot. Enjoy watching it. I'm a very simple person, not in the sense that I'm simple-minded, but in the sense that I don't need much to be happy. You don't need a huge house or a new car every 2 years. I just need a place to call home, good food, a little alcohol every now and then, and a woman to share my life with, preferably. I just want to be comfortable and relaxed with my significant other. My ideal day is a few hours of fishing, working on an old sports car or pickup truck, an evening barbecue with a beer or two, a nice dinner, and then a quiet evening with a glass of bourbon with my wife and a good book. Just very simple. I must admit right away that I am not a movie star, athlete, or model. I'm actually quite average. I'm 5 feet 8 inches, with brown hair, brown eyes, and in pretty decent shape. I am now 51 years old. I'm not too rich. I admit that age has caught up with me, although I don't need pills to get started. It usually takes time to get ready for the second round. My current girlfriend doesn't seem to mind. Isabella is 45 years old, but she is still quite attractive. Her long, luxurious, shiny black hair hangs down to the middle of her back. Yes, she is Latina, quite a common occurrence for a native of Costa Rica. Her height is 5 feet 4 inches, with beautiful breasts of size 34C, a narrow waist, and wide hips. We've been together for a little over 5 years. I met her about a year after moving here, and we've been together ever since. A typical day for me starts at 5 o'clock in the morning. I get up, take a shower, get dressed, drink coffee, have breakfast, and go to the yacht. Before leaving, I always, without fail, kiss Isabella. Most days, I spend most of the morning fishing. Then I come back and sell most of my catch to local shops from the dock. Sometimes, to supplement my income, I take out a charter for tourists. I don't need it though, I have enough money to live almost the rest of my life. As I said above, I don't need a lot of money to live well, especially here. Having sold everything I caught, I return to the house where Isabella is preparing dinner. After lunch, I clean the fish I brought home and go to the garage to tinker with my latest toy. Currently, it is a 1967 GMC pickup that I am building. After a couple of hours, I'll drink a glass of bourbon or a bottle of beer and relax on the porch. Later, I'll fire up the barbecue and cook steaks, fish, or chicken for dinner. Isabella usually joins me with a glass of wine, and we chat about our days while I grill. After dinner, we both clean up and settle down on the couch, reading books and talking about all sorts of topics. In bed, we usually, although not always, make love before falling asleep in each other's arms. Even on nights when we don't have an intimate, we still cuddle in our sleep. We are both very happy and satisfied. It really is an idyllic life. Sometimes we visit the local bar for dinner, drinks, and a little dancing. Sometimes we invite friends over for the evening so we're not hermits. The town on the coast is quite small, and I am well known and liked. I could see myself living here for the rest of my life, until I saw her in the bar that night. Isabella and I were enjoying a pleasant evening at a local bar with a couple of friends when she walked in with a group of 5 people. They were divided equally between boys and girls of college age. They were probably home for spring break from school. There was no way I could miss her, 5 feet 6 inches tall, long wavy red hair, emerald green eyes, athletic figure with beautiful breasts, and an angelic face. She was the spitting image of my wife at her age and had clearly grown since I last saw her 6 years ago. This may have just answered your question about why Isabella and I never got married despite being together for 5 years. The reason is that I'm already married. Yes, Isabella knows this and has accepted it. No, my wife has no idea about Isabella. What's more, she has no idea where the hell I am, and I'm doing everything I can to make sure she never finds out. If she found me, I would be in serious trouble. And now I realize that I'm in deep when my youngest daughter is standing in the same bar as me. We need to get out of here, and quickly, I whispered to Bella. Why? What's happened? She asked. Do you see that beautiful redhead that just came in? She nodded. Now you know exactly what my wife looked like when she was about 20. Damn, she replied. Luckily, we were sitting close to the door. When I saw the group move towards the bar, Bella and I quietly made our way to the door. We made up some excuse for our friends to leave, but they also knew it was urgent and understood. Later, I would have to tell them what happened. I saw the bartender pointing to the table we had just vacated as the door closed behind us. Crap, so you're probably wondering what the hell is going on. In fact, you probably already understand the general idea, but now you need to fill in all the details. The fact is that I am hiding from my unfaithful, psychopathic wife. She cheated on me and then planned to rape me in the divorce if I didn't just walk out of it without clothes. I decided I wouldn't let this happen. I used to be known as Damon Lewis. That was my name when I was born. This is still my legal name, but I no longer use it for obvious reasons. I grew up in a small town in California. I was the middle child, having an older brother and a younger sister. Out of all of us, I was the only one who went to college. My parents died in a car accident when I was a junior in college, and my brother died in a construction accident about a year after that. My sister and I never got along, so after our parents and brother died, we just grew apart. We don't even exchange birthday or Christmas greetings anymore. I graduated from university with a degree in civil engineering and moved across the country to find a job. I had already been working for a large engineering firm for several years when I met Patricia. Pat was a friend of a friend whom I met at a party on a Saturday afternoon. She graduated from college with a degree in history and was currently working as a barista at a local coffee shop. After talking with her for half an hour, it became obvious to me that she attended college for two reasons. Firstly, it was a way to keep herself from growing up for a few more years, and secondly, she was actually going to get her Mrs. degree. For those unfamiliar with this terminology, a Mrs. degree is when a girl goes to college for a husband. Yes, I know there should have been red flags. Unfortunately for me, she was incredibly beautiful, charming, witty, and seemed quite intelligent. We seemed to get along well, and I asked her out. She agreed. I took her to a nice restaurant and then to a show. We had a good time, and I asked her out again. She agreed. After a few more dates, we decided to become exclusive. On the fifth date, she spent the night with me. She was just as gorgeous without anything as I had imagined. 3 months later, I proposed. The year later, we got married. We settled well into our married life. She quit her job to become a full-time mom when she found out she was pregnant. 6 months after our wedding, James Damon Lewis, the light of our lives, was born. Less than 2 years later, Michael John Lewis was born. 2 years after that, Sherry Patricia Lewis appeared in our lives. All three were wonderful, healthy children. It didn't take long for Sherry to have me completely wrapped around her little finger. She became daddy's girl. We decided that 3 was enough, and after Patricia, we tied the tubes. Life was wonderful. Patricia stayed at home and raised the children, and I worked to provide for the family. I earned a good income, so my children and my wife did not need anything. At 30, I was promoted to senior engineer. A year later, we bought a house in the suburbs. They both drove nice cars, and I had a 1972 GTO in my garage. Patricia and I still made time for each other. We had a monthly date night where we hired a babysitter to go to dinner and a show or some other event. We still had a fulfilling night life. Of course, over time, it became a little less frequent, but we both worked hard at improving the situation. We always had an intimate at least 3 nights a week, and also every night I was at home. I wasn't one of those guys who traveled for work. As the children grew older, Patricia began participating in their extracurricular activities. She became a soccer mom, an American soccer mom, and of course, a dance mom. I never saw the slightest hint from her that she was unhappy. I attended every show, game, and event I could. I don't think I missed more than 5% of the kids' events. On April 7th, a few months earlier, I had turned 45. The children were at school, and it was lunchtime. I had just left a construction site that I was visiting near my home and decided to stop there for lunch. I was following another car about a half block ahead of me on my street when I saw it turn into my driveway. As I drove closer, I saw a man get out of the car. I could not believe it. Danny Johnson was my best friend. He knew I wasn't home, so what was he doing here? Something was wrong. I decided to just drive by and park a little further down the street. I got to a place where I was far away but could still see my front door. I watched it, walked up to the door, took out the key, and went inside. I called the office and said I was stuck on a project and would be back late. After getting out of the car, I returned to the house and walked around the backyard. I knew there was a small gap at the bottom of the blinds in our bedroom, and the blinds on the patio door are usually left open. Sneaking along the back of the yard, I was able to hide behind some bushes so I could see through the French doors. My wife stood there in a very short robe, passionately kissing my ex-best friend. Yes, I already took out my mobile phone and filmed it. As they moved towards the corridor, I also moved to look out the bedroom window. I filmed everything on my phone. She threw off her robe as soon as she walked through the door. I had to stop recording after she pulled his pants down. Soon after that, I left. I just couldn't watch it anymore. Returning to the office, I was in a daze. I really didn't know that she would cheat on me. I needed more information. After a couple of hours, my engineering brain turned on. Engineers solve problems. This is what we do. I can deal with this. I just needed a little more time. So, I called Patricia and told her I'd be home a couple of hours later. This was not unusual for me, although it didn't happen often. There were times when I needed to stay late, so she had no reason to be suspicious. I went online and found what I needed, several small Wi-Fi security cameras. Those little idiots aren't cheap, but I handle the finances, so she'll never see the bill until it's too late. I sent them to my office. I couldn't risk her seeing them when they arrived home. I then got into our finances and started making some moves with our savings and retirement accounts. It was the little things, the rest would wait. The last thing I did was start researching divorce laws. Things weren't pretty, so I needed to investigate further. Now, about the most difficult part. Over the next week or so, I needed to act as naturally as possible. I couldn't let her guess that I knew about her affairs. Somehow, I managed to get out. I said I thought I might have caught a cold that seemed to be going around everywhere. I'm not sick enough to stay home, but close contact is best avoided. There was no intim that night, and we slept on opposite sides of the bed. A couple of days later, on Friday, I received the cameras and software. I packed them into my briefcase before heading home. I still had a cold, but it was getting better. It's better to keep your distance. The next morning, Patricia went shopping. I took this opportunity to hide a couple of cameras in the bedroom. I was also able to hide a couple more in the living room and kitchen while the kids were out. I hid the recording device in the attic. Patricia had never been up there, so it was safe. I have to admit that we had an intimate that night. She is still a very nicely woman, and the night has always been very good. On Sunday, I walked with the children, just doing fatherly things. For dinner, I cooked steaks on the barbecue, watched a movie, and went to bed. On Monday, I was stuck at work. Thoughts were constantly spinning in my head about what I would later see on the cameras. I couldn't concentrate on work. The day ended, and I finally went home. Patricia noticed something was wrong, but I said that I had a personnel issue at work that I was solving. I made myself a bourbon on the rocks and went upstairs to shower and change. Patricia was busy in the kitchen, so I was able to sneak upstairs and download the video to a flash drive. After dinner, I told Patricia that I needed to stop by my home office to check on our finances and investments. After closing the door and turning on the laptop, I inserted the flash drive and started watching the video. It didn't take long to fast forward to the moment Danny walked in. There were shots of them kissing again in the living room, having an intimate on our bed, going to the bathroom together, and an hour later, coming out freshly washed. Then, they got dressed, another passionate kiss at the door, and he left. I'll need to look into this in more detail at work tomorrow. When we went to bed, Patricia noticed that I was still gloomy. I explained again that this was a personnel matter at work and I couldn't discuss it, but I would probably end up having to fire someone I liked. She understood and knew how much I hated firing anyone. The next morning, I experienced an even greater shock. At this time, I listened to the audio part of the recording. "Where are you going to leave Damon? Sorry, fifth place, and run away with me?" Danny asked. "I can't yet," she answered. "I want to wait until the children finish school. Until then, he will distract them too much. Besides, he makes very good money, and I want to accumulate some good capital before I take him to the cleaners." "You hate him so much," he said. "No, I like him, and he provides for me well. But I never really loved him. I always saw it only as a good meal ticket. He's also decent in bed, but I've never seen him as more than a friend with benefits. The thing is, when I divorce him, I will need as much of his property as I can get in order to live the life I want." "Why not just find another husband with whom you are more compatible?" he asked. "What? How are you going to divorce your little wife? Besides, he would have exposed you too, and you don't earn enough to support me the way I want. I would still have to find some measly job to make ends meet, like Donna is doing now." "Suppose he finds out about us," he said. "He can try, but then I'll just give him the facts. If he does, I will rape him in the divorce. I have not worked since about 6 months into our marriage. This means that I will receive alimony of several $1,000s a month, plus all child support, their education, health care, as well as much of our savings and retirement accounts as I can get. I will also get a house and full custody of the children." After hearing all this, he will have no choice but to sit back and accept it. Believe me, if he wants to try to start a war, I will destroy him. "Okay, I've heard enough. It's time to cast the bait." I spent the rest of the day researching the divorce laws in this state. Things were pretty bleak. I went into our law office and discussed this with one of my friends who is an attorney. We talked for about an hour. Although this is not his area of expertise, it was pretty clear that I would have to, at a minimum, pay child support, give her the house, half of my savings, half of my pension, and also pay a fairly large monthly alimony to support her since she never had a paid job during our marriage. No, the state doesn't care that she is a traitor. Besides, if she had a real shark lawyer, things could have been much worse. Crap, I was completely screwed. There was only one thing I could do, and it would hurt like hell. It took another 2 months to get everything ready. It was expensive, but much cheaper than the alternative. I managed to get fake documents that were professionally done through old school friends who went the other way. I quit my job and cashed in my pension. I also refinanced the house for the full appraised amount and put that money into one of the offshore accounts. Yes, it was going to ruin my credit score for the next 7 years, but screw it. I went online and created several offshore bank accounts under different names in Belize and the Cayman Islands. I gradually transferred money from our investments and savings to my offshore accounts, making sure that they were random amounts and well below the reporting level. There were only a couple of things left to do. During those 2 months, I started going to the ATM every couple of days and withdrawing a couple of $100s in cash. Then, I would go to another bank and deposit this money into another account registered only in my name, and then electronically transfer it to one of my offshore accounts. Thus, all our accounts were successfully emptied down to a couple of thousand. I ended up selling my GTO for $20,000, and the money immediately went into offshore accounts. Patricia went to the gym early in the morning to train. She did this about 3 times a week. I said I was taking the day off to make up for the extra time I spent working. I was just going to sit and relax, since work is quite stressful. As soon as she left, I went to the office and sat down at my laptop. All the videos and other information I collected were already placed on 4 flash drives and then connected to the cloud. I had already set up a mass email with a link and access information before sending the letter. I completed the final transfer of funds from all of our checking, savings, and investment accounts to the new offshore accounts I created, then closed all accounts and changed the mailing address to a P.O. box, which I asked a friend to check and destroy all mail for the next 2 months. I left the current account address the same. She knew about it, and asking the bank would probably give her a new address, and I couldn't have her sitting by and watching. In addition, the account statement will only show the most recent transfer to the fictitious account for an amount less than $1,000. At worst, it will be petty theft. Once that was done, I sent a letter to all of our friends and her family. Then, I reformatted the computer and inserted another flash drive with a very nasty virus that completely destroyed it. All statements and papers for all our accounts were taken out to be burned in the grill, leaving no paper trail to locate the accounts. It's difficult to find an account that you don't even know about and where it might be. By the time anyone could figure out what happened, I had already transferred the money several more times and erased all traces. The last thing I did was get into the car with my briefcase and one suitcase and drive to the airport. I made 3 stops along the way, one at each of my children's schools, where I brought a flash drive to the office to be given to my children, and another stop at Danny's house, where I gave the last flash drive to his very embarrassed wife. I parked the car, left the keys in it, and went to the terminal. 6 different flights, 3 rental car trips to other airports, 4 countries over a week's time, and I landed in Costa Rica to start a new life with a new identity. Oh, and before you think I'm a complete nerd, I should mention that I have set up a trust fund for my children that will pay for all of their education, as well as ensure that each of them receives enough money to take care of what he needs. A friend from work agreed to be a trustee of this fund. He had to see that they got everything they needed, but not a penny could be used by my wife. Meals and rent were included for the children so she would have decent housing and food, but no frills. Of course, the bank would foreclose on the house, so she would have to find a place to rent. Because of everything I did and the investments I made, within 6 years I had over $5 million in the bank and in papers. Sherry's spring break during junior year of college, I studied engineering like my dad. I haven't seen him since he left home 6 years ago. My God, the mess he left was terrible. I understand why he did this. He left all 3 of us a flash drive on which we could see what Mom was doing. I couldn't believe it when I heard her tell her lover what she was going to do to Daddy. I have to admit that it was hard for a while. Mom lost her house, and we had to find a much smaller house that we could rent. Mom even had to look for a job. God, how she hated it. At least my father left us a trust to take care of us. We never lacked food or anything else we needed, but we needed to account for everything. It was very specific, nothing for Mom. If she needed clothes, she had to find money somewhere. She always had enough to eat and lived with us in a rented apartment, so she had shelter, but other than that, things were pretty bleak. Luckily, I was only there until I graduated from school. Mom and Danny often quarreled. Oh yeah, Danny's wife practically raped him during the divorce. Mom and Danny moved into a small studio apartment after I left for college, and the trust stopped paying for the house. After that, they couldn't afford rent anyway. A couple of my friends got a great deal on a small resort in Costa Rica for spring break. It was a bit out of the way from the main spring break spots, so since we weren't in the mood for the heavy partying we'd been doing the last couple of years, we decided to go there. There were 2 rooms, boys in one and girls in the other. Yes, we were 3 couples, but I didn't have a serious relationship with the guy I was with at the time. We had fun, but I think we both knew we had no future with each other. We were there for 2 days when the guys decided they wanted to try their hand at deep-sea fishing. We girls just wanted to sunbathe a little on the boat. After being pointed to a local bar where there were a few boat owners who sometimes took charters, we walked over and went inside. We had just reached the bar to ask who we could talk to about chartering a boat and were ordering drinks when I noticed an elderly couple slip out the door. I only glanced at the guy's face, but something about him seemed strange to me. I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was something about that face. Anyway, the bartender pointed to a table and started pouring us drinks. With drinks in hand, we walked over to talk to 2 couples sitting at the table in question. Josh, one of the guys in our group, inquired about chartering a boat for tomorrow, indicating that the bartender pointed them out as people who might be able to help us. Oh, he was probably talking about David, but you just missed him. He and Isabella just left, one of the men said. Damn, Josh replied. Is there any way we can contact him? We really want to sail somewhere tomorrow. Well, the old man began, probably the best thing is to be at his boat before 6 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. He usually takes her fishing around this time. Just go down to the docks and look for Sherry Patricia. What did you say his name is? I asked, completely ignoring the question. His name is David, was the answer. Oh my God, I began, excited. Senorita, are you all right? Asked one of the women. What's his name? I asked. David Knight, was the answer. Oh my God, this can't be, I whispered to myself. What happened, Sherry? Nick asked. I saw both couples' eyebrows rise when he called me by name. Name of the boat. Do you know my middle name, Patricia? I'm Sherry Patricia. Patricia is my mother's name. There's a tradition in my family that the eldest son takes his father's name as his middle name. My parents extended this tradition so that their daughter's middle name was her mother's first name. He named his boat after me. I suddenly realized. What? That flashing on the side of the boat, I cried. God bless. Let's go. We need to go right now, I told my friends, looking at the two couples. I asked, where's his pier? I need to get there before he leaves. As I said, he usually doesn't leave until 6 o'clock. No. He will go. He saw me, and he will run away again. I need to catch Daddy before he leaves me again. The silence that fell in the bar was deafening. The expression of complete shock from the two couples and all my friends would have been comical if I hadn't been on the verge of a nervous breakdown at that moment. Are you sure? Asked the elderly gentleman after my nod. He stood up and began to move towards the door. Let's go. I'll show you. The city wasn't very big, so we got there in just a few minutes. When I saw his boat, I ran along the dock and jumped on it. He wasn't there. I turned to my friends. Return to the resort. I'll see you there in the morning, I said. Sure, we have to stay to make sure you're okay. He might hurt you or something. After all, it might not even be him. No, I'm sure. I still need to do this alone. This is a personal matter. Besides, if I'm wrong, he won't get here until the morning, and you guys will still be here early. If I'm right, he'll be coming soon to hide, and having all of us here will only scare him away. Now leave. I don't want him to see you. After a few more reassurances, they left, but I knew they wouldn't get far before they hid and watched. Sure enough, just 10 minutes later, headlights approached the dock. I hid in the cabin. When two figures got out of the car and carried their things to the boat, I sent James and Mike a message to get on a conference call with me urgently. Once they were connected, I told them to keep quiet and that I was putting them on speaker. Whatever they heard, they were to remain silent until I told them otherwise. After receiving their assurances, I placed the phone on the table next to me. David, crap, and doubly damn. What the hell is she doing here? Did they somehow manage to track me? Does she know I'm here, or is this one of those random coincidences that karma throws in to ruin everything? At least I saw her before she noticed me. And I don't think she even saw me when we left the bar. However, I couldn't take that risk. If they were looking for me, I still had a good chance of escaping. Assuming they weren't sure I was here, I'd changed so much that any old photograph wouldn't help anyone recognize me. Plus, I completely changed my personality, so no one here knows anything about Dan and Lewis. As we carried the food and luggage to the boat, I glanced at the name. Crap, and why did I even name my boat after her? Another reason to get out of here before she sees it. Crap, how long has she even been here? It doesn't look like she just arrived. Let's go, Bella. We need to move. I think it will take at least a week, maybe 2, and we will be able to return, I told her, putting the refrigerator on the deck. Sorry, are you David Knight? My friends and I would like to discuss the possibility of chartering your yacht for tomorrow, I heard a melodious voice from inside the darkened cabin. No, let it not be her. Sorry, but she is unavailable. I have other work on my boat that will take up the next 2 weeks, and I need to get moving to make it on time. I can't help you, and I really need you to leave my boat now. I'm in a hurry, seriously. Daddy, are you planning to run away from your daughter again? She said. I have tried. I really tried. I used all my willpower to tell her that I didn't know what she was talking about. It didn't help. I just couldn't say a word. She turned on the light, and I turned to face my beautiful baby. One look at her, and I fell to my knees, sobbing. Sorry, baby. I am so sorry. I simply couldn't think of anything else. The hardest thing in the world was for me to leave you and your brothers. You were my whole world. But I just couldn't stay. I burst into tears. Dad, you left us without a word. Didn't even say goodbye. Not a word, nothing for 6 years. We didn't even know if you were alive, she cursed. I know, baby, and I'm really, really sorry. But I just couldn't risk her finding me. I couldn't tell you goodbye because she might find out what I was doing. Believe me, baby, I hated it every day for the last 6 years. And yet you were just about to run away from me again? Yes, I didn't think you saw me. I didn't know if you were looking for me here or if it was just a coincidence. If it's just a coincidence, then I thought it would be less painful for you if you never knew I was here. If you're looking for me, I couldn't risk you telling your mother or the authorities where I am. Well, the second part makes sense. After all, you'll probably be facing jail time if they can get you extradited back to the States. Of course, that is unless your wife finds a way to get here and kill you first, she said, with a truly evil smile. I'm sorry I put you through that, baby. I wouldn't want to, but I just couldn't go through with what she had planned. I would have been gutted by her, or she would have smeared me and never let me see you again while I paid her to be whoring. No matter what I did, if I had stayed, I would have lost all of you. I decided that since I would lose you and your brothers anyway, at least this way, I could provide you with everything you needed and retain some of my dignity. I'm very sorry about what happened. I really wish there was another way. So, I guess as soon as I get off this boat, you're going to sneak out of here? I laughed a little at this. No, I believe it will take your mother at least 3 days to get here, and to attract the authorities, it takes even more time. I'll stay here for a couple more days. Additionally, I have information about a small group that may be interested in chartering my boat for tomorrow, she smiled. Only if I get a family discount. Now, won't you introduce me to your friend? After the meeting took place, Sherry asked, why haven't you gotten married yet? Because it seems like you're both in love. Actually, there are 2 reasons. First and most importantly, as far as I know, I'm still married to your mother. Secondly, I will only marry under my real name. If I use it, I could be tracked, and that could cause a lot of problems. She smiled wryly, and then said something that made my chin hit the floor. Hey Mike, you're the lawyer here. What do you think about what he just said? I almost fainted when I heard his voice. My gaze suddenly fell on her mobile phone, which was lying next to her. Well, Dad, since your mother managed to divorce you last year because you abandoned her, you are free and clear in this matter. Secondly, while it is technically true that you can be found by your real name, this will require either a lot of money to invest in research or someone's tip to point them in the right direction. But even then, it will take money to check this and then do something about it. Speaking for myself, after studying all the information you left me, I have absolutely no intention of telling my mother anything that she could use to find you. Besides, she and Danny Boy are barely making ends meet right now, so I highly doubt she'll even have the means to try to find you. This is just my personal opinion. I can't speak for Sher or James. I agree with Mike too, Dad. I'm going to tell my mom that I talked to you on the phone, but I have no idea where you were when you called. I heard James's voice on the phone. Of course, it was hard for us for some time, but I blame my mother for the fact that we found ourselves in this situation. I was angry at you for a while, but then I realized the position she put you in. Do you see, Dad? Because of us, you don't have to worry about anything. But there's one catch, you have to invite all 3 of us to the wedding. I'm also planning to come here for the summer holiday, so you better guarantee that you have a place for me for a couple of months, Sherry added. Isabella and I talked a little more with Sherry and the boys before they needed to hang up. Sherry then walked onto the deck and called her friends to come on board. She laughed when they asked how she knew they were still there. The next day, everyone had a great time by the ocean. I gave them a family discount. Sher spent a little more time with me the rest of the week before she had to go back to college. True to her word, she spent 2 months with us during the summer. I had some additions for next summer when the boys were coming too. Isabella and I got married that summer while all 3 of my children were there. 5 years later. Are you ready, Princess? I asked. More than ready, Daddy, Sherry replied. I nearly fell to the floor laughing at the looks on Patricia and Danny's faces as I walked the little girl down the aisle. Danny was outraged when Sherry passed him and asked James to walk her down the aisle at her wedding. They didn't know it was a setup. I was the one who was actually going to marry her off. Yes, James was completely aware they did this to hide the fact that I would be there. If Isabella later told me that she received many questioning glances as Mark led her to the front bench, it wasn't until I finished my part and sat down next to her that people started to understand what was going on. "Who gives this woman in marriage?" asked the preacher. "Her father does it," I said. I felt Patricia's gaze on my back. Oh, she knew the kids were talking to me. I just didn't know how tight it was. She also didn't know where I was when I told her not to give Sherry away. I thought she would explode. It wasn't until later that she finally understood how Sherry and Noah were able to afford such a beautiful wedding and reception. The ceremony was beautiful, and Noah was truly a wonderful guy. I saw it in their eyes when she brought him out to meet me. Their love was real and would last a long time. "We need to talk," Patricia hissed at me as we walked into the reception hall. "I actually don't think there's a need for that. I already know that I didn't do anything wrong, and I'm not interested in whatever you come up with to justify your betrayal," I replied. "You stole all my money, you an idiot." "Well, I just thought that this was payment for what you took from me and gave to someone else. Did you really think that I would agree with you cheating on me and even pay you for it?" With that, I turned my back to her and left. The reception was a great success. I paid for the entire bar. When the DJ announced the father-daughter dance, Danny stood up and moved toward the dance floor. Sherry just brushed past him like he wasn't even there and took my hand to ask me to dance. Of course, Isabella and I also danced a lot that evening. My sons also did not fail to dance with her several times. James's wife and Mark's fiancé asked me to dance with them a couple of times. How could I refuse? Both categorically refused Danny when he asked them to dance. I think this is what finally threw him off balance. Like I said, it was an open bar. Danny obviously took full advantage of this. He was humiliated all day, from the time I walked my daughter down the aisle in his place, to not being mentioned at her wedding, to being ignored at the father-daughter dance, to being flatly denied when he invited my son's wife and fiancé to dance. He felt his liquid courage when he finally decided to try to put me in my place. He had the courage to ask Isabella to dance. She didn't even say a word. She just stared at him for a minute as if she were examining a bug that had just landed next to her. Then she turned and continued talking to the couple next to her as if he wasn't there. I saw his face turn white and then red with rage. Several other people also stopped their conversations and watched what was happening. I was moving right behind him as he stepped back to swing at my wife. Catching his swing mid-flight, I turned him around and informed him that he had exhausted his chances here. I noticed that several phones were filming what was happening. I remained calm and told him to go home and get some sleep, and if he tried to hit my wife again, I would send him to the hospital for a week. Danny has become soft and slow over the years. On the other hand, I was lean and strong, having worked on boats and cars for years. I lived a simple life, ate healthy, and kept fit. Besides, I was practically sober and he was close to being drunk. I let him take the first 3 swings and was able to block them easily. After the first 2 misses, I warned him, 3 strikes and you're out. You're probably wondering if I was arrested for what I did. Oh, she did try. If it had been up to her, I would have spent several years in prison for what I did. Unfortunately for her, 4 little things stood in her way. First of all, she didn't have any documentation of what I did. She couldn't prove that I actually took the money because I destroyed all the statements, and she never asked how much money we had or where it was. As far as we can tell from the available records, we were barely making ends meet and living paycheck to paycheck. She didn't even know where to start looking for our investment accounts. My pension went straight into one of my offshore accounts, by the way. When she finally gave in and filed for divorce due to abandonment, she did it quickly and easily, just a direct division of assets at that time. Of course, by that time, there were no more assets. Thirdly, all 3 children agreed to testify that I lived in a dilapidated house, having no means of livelihood other than selling fish at the local market every day. Finally, all she could prove was petty theft under $500. The statute of limitations on this case has long expired. I agreed to give her a check for 60% of what was in the checking account the day I left, just to show that I was a good guy. It turned out to be $576.93. Of course, all the video footage showed Danny attacking my wife first, followed by me, and I gave him ample opportunity to get away. It was decided it was self-defense, and he was hospitalized for 2 weeks. He ended up losing the lousy job he had. Patricia eventually divorced Danny. The damage was too great, and he would never be able to repair the relationship without Knight. They had nothing to keep them together. Isabella and I stayed in Costa Rica, although we could move back to the States. We both enjoy the relaxed lifestyle and low cost of living. Several times a year, we return to the States to see our children and grandchildren. They also come to visit us regularly. We ended up buying a bigger house to accommodate them. By this time, my anger towards Patricia had subsided. Although I no longer love her and do not want her back as my wife, I decided that she had been punished enough. She ended up moving to Costa Rica and renting my old house from me. I helped her get a job as a waitress at a local bar. The money isn't much, but at least she can have a roof over her head and food in her stomach. Isabella and I go to this bar more often now than before. She keeps bringing up what she lost every time she sees us together, serving us drinks. No, we're not worried about her spitting in our drinks or our food. I made it clear to her that if this happened, she would be homeless and unemployed on the streets of a third world country. She will also lose contact with all her children and grandchildren. What do you think of our story today? It seems to me that in today's story, the wife was most to blame and the man was the opposite. What is your opinion? Write in the comments. See you in the next video.